My name is Ken Holly. I'm the Director of Leadership and Strategy at the New York Metro Chapter of the National Black MBA Association. On behalf of our president, Novo Barrington, and our chapter board, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our Advancing Your Career with a PMP certification, a conversation with certified project management professionals featuring Sharon Bussey, along with Vina Morris and Alicia Sulks. In today's conversation about advancing your career with a PMP certification, our objective is to, one, help provide a roadmap to a PMP certification. Two, encourage those studying for the PMP exam and best practices. Three, to discuss the benefits of a PMP certification and earning potential. Now, to our members and community seeking to expand their professional growth, this is a program that not will only help you professionally, but it will also help you personally. Project management impacts every part of our lives, and as a reference to the definition of a project, it is one that is a temporary endeavor. It has a beginning and an end date. It's creating a unique product, service, or result. The New York Metro Chapter of the National Black MBA Association is committed to providing programs and resources to help advance members in the community. And we are proud to have partnered with BT2 Institute. Without further ado, I have the honor of introducing a panel of today's discussion, starting with Sharon Bussey. Sharon is a lifetime member and a former board member of the New York Metro Chapter of the National Black MBA Association. She is the managing director of BT2 Institute, a consulting and training company specializing in product, program, and project management using agile, hybrid, and waterfall methodologies. Sharon has more than 20 years of leadership experience as a change agent. Prior to BT2 Institute, Sharon was a director and lead for business technology and organizational process alignment at Pfizer. And prior to Pfizer, Sharon was a senior management consultant in their healthcare and government practice. Sharon has an MBA in marketing and operations from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania and an MS in computer science from Pace University.
Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome. Our next panelist is Alicia Sulks. Alicia is currently the Director of Market Strategy Development at Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey. She is responsible for providing cross-functional support to competitive intelligence enterprise-wide. Alicia has over 15 years of experience within the healthcare industry, specializing in data analytics and project management. As a member of the executive board of the New York Metro Chapter of the National Black MBA Association, Alicia is the vice president of administration. Alicia received a bachelor's degree in economics and business management from Stony Brook University and an MBA in healthcare management from Zeppelin School of Business at Baruch College. Now I'd like to introduce our third panelist. Our third panelist is Vina Morris.
Hi.
Hey. Vina Morris is the head of technology for Vera Institute of Justice, where she oversees every aspect of technology to support Vera's mission of social justice reform. Formerly, Vina was the director of IT enterprise Project Management Office at NYU Langone Health, formerly known as NYU Langone Hospitals. Vina has served as the head of IT PMO for NYU Langone Hospitals and Axiom Corporations, where she built and transformed several PMOs. Her extensive project and portfolio management experience spans several industries and more than 20 years. As a member of the executive board of the New York Metro chapter of the National Black MBA Association, Vina is the vice president of operations, where she manages the lifestyle, leadership, business of series, and community engagement pillars. Vina received her MBA in Management of Information Systems from Roosevelt University in Chicago. She also holds a MS in Communication and a BA in English from Illinois State University. You can bring them all to the front. Sharon, Alicia, Vina, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to talk about the advancing one's career with a PMP certification. Now, as a recent certified project management professional, I actually obtained my certification in February. I look forward to hearing about the steps it took for you to get certified and your experience to help get and an experience to help get to where you are today. Now, I'd like to start with the first question. And start with Alicia. Tell us, I gave a brief synopsis of your background, from your bio. Could you share a bit more about your experience and your career journey as it pertains to PMP?
Sure. So about 10 years ago, I was on a project team that was taking over. It was for a hospital system, and they were acquiring different medical offices, and they wanted to streamline all of their medical data into one system. So I was a business analyst on that project team, and I realized I really wanted to be a project manager, but I needed more time actually working on this project I needed more time to work on the project, but they weren't providing me with that experience. So I moved on to work at Anthem, and it was another project team, and they were decommissioning provider databases across the US, across 14 states actually. And I was like a mini project manager on that team. I was a liaison between business and IT. So I put together project plans, and there were different projects within this entire enterprise project. So I worked on this project for about 3 years. And in order to obtain your PMP at that time, you needed about, I think it was 3,500 hours. And Sharon, you can keep me honest. I'm trying to remember from that time. But I needed that time on those projects in order to actually sit for the exam. So, working with that project team, leading different initiatives within that entire organizational project helped me to be able to actually just sit for the exam and have the 35 hours, of course, of classroom work as well, to put all that together. Because at the time, I needed to be able to document the projects that I worked on, be able to have individuals to vouch for me that I worked on that project, because you can get audited after actually applying to sit for the exam. So there was a lot of different pieces that I need to get done before actually taking the exam. So at a high level, that was kind of like the route that I took. Because I really wanted to do it, and that was the only way to do it.
Thank you. Sharon, could you expand on your background and experience as it pertains to PMP?
Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. I was exposed to project management when I was at Deloitte Consulting. They had their own proprietary project management system and way of working. And I left Deloitte to go to Pfizer. And at the time, Pfizer didn't have anything for project management. So I did a lot of research. And that's when I discovered the PMP and realized that at the time, and it still is the gold standard for project management. And at that time, I was heading up an internal consulting group. And so that's how I decided my team would work. And I chose it for many reasons. One, what I loved most about it is that it gave you an out of the box toolkit and way of thinking, way of working. And by using PMP and having my team certified, we were far more effective than we would have been otherwise. And so the entire time I was there, we used the processes, the tools very heavily, and it made a tremendous difference.
Excellent, excellent.
Mhm.
Really appreciate that input. And Vina, would you be able to share with us your background and experience as it pertains to PMP?
Absolutely. For me, my journey was a little bit different. So I happened upon PMI and project management by happenstance. At the time, I was the head of QA, the quality assurance testing team for a company administrative management group, which eventually became Lincoln Financial. And I was there and I was struggling to, you know, keep a schedule in an Excel spreadsheet that was so tedious. It had like thousands of lines, and every time something changed, a date changed, I had to go back and find it. There was always an issue in trying to figure out what came next. And, it was just, horrible for me to, be successful. Even though I was very successful, it was just very time consuming. So I came upon Microsoft Project, and in doing that, I was able to understand like the date math behind it. And by happenstance, one of my colleagues mentioned that he was going to a PMI class. And I was like, well, what's a PMI class? He's like, it's a project management class. And I'm like, well, what's project management? I knew that, that project management was a thing, but I didn't know it was like a phenomenon and an institute that, focused on providing a gold standard, to Sharon Bussey's point. So I was like, I'm taking the class too. So I took the class, and this was like fresh out of college. It's like my second or third job, maybe my second job post my first master's. And I took the class and I learned about standards. And the whole time I'm thinking, I've been doing this my whole life. Everything that I do has a list, etc. So I took the classes, and yes, we had the out of the box process approach. I immediately brought it back to Lincoln Financial Administrative Management Group at the time, and built the PMO from there. Built the processes around it. So I wasn't technically the head of the PMO. I wasn't technically a project manager. I was still the head of quality assurance. But at the same time, PMI is what really got me started and really made me realize that it's an actual thing. And it's disciplined, and it helped me so much, and it helped me to bring it all together. I was doing SDLC by myself. I'm in technology. I was doing SDLC by myself, fighting with people to do their part so we can get things done on time, forcing people to communicate. And I finally had something to stand on and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. And so I put it all together, and the rest is history. At that point in time, I knew that was going to be my career, and I was going to take off, and I knew exactly where I was going. It was like the biggest aha moment of my career. So
Nice. Could you expand on, Alicia talked a little bit about, needing to accumulate the hours to be able to sit for the exam. Could you talk a little bit about your experience? I know you may mention the class that you took and being able to apply what you learned in the class and scheduling and project. But what was that process like for you?
sure.
To obtain those hours?
So when I went to take the class, I was not necessarily taking it for the certification. So I actually took PMI classes, but not necessarily because I didn't understand the value of that. I was very young. I didn't understand the value of PMP at the time. It wasn't anything that was widely accepted at the organization where I worked. And so what I did was I took the classes, and a PMBOK, project management body of knowledge, became my Bible for pretty much everything that I do. It was like, as I said, I realized in that moment that I've been doing project management since I was in undergrad, because I worked full time while I was in undergrad. I worked full time when I was in grad school. So I was able to, even use some of those hours for projects that I did, because regardless of what I was doing, I had a list of tasks. They had predecessors, they had estimations, they had the estimates, they had people, they had, deadlines for things to get done. There were meetings every week. So I was doing this my whole life. So I think I was born a project management manager somehow. But anyway, I didn't take the PMP until many years later. I eventually left Lincoln Financial Group. I went to Ernst & Young. I introduced project management to Ernst & Young in the Chicago sector and the business risk and security services group, because we were managing engagements. And what were we doing? Using a spreadsheet. Using a spreadsheet with all these formulas. It was all crazy. I'm like, have you guys ever heard of Microsoft Project? Have you guys ever heard about project management? It was really interesting. And so within our group, we started to use project management. So I've always had the hours. I didn't sit for the PMP until 10 years later, because I didn't need it. I had the skill set, I had the background, and I'm very passionate about project management. So I was landing jobs left and right in project management. And I also had a mentor who brought me on. So when I was at Lincoln Financial, they hired this Black man who's still my mentor. I think I'm his mentor now, because it's been over, I'm not even going to tell you how long ago that was, but it was some decades involved. But it was him who actually introduced me and really took me under his wing. And that's how I got into actually building PMOs, because together I helped him build a PMO at Lincoln Financial. And then together we built the PMO at Axiom that you mentioned a moment ago, where I stayed for 9 years and eventually took his job over, because he was the head of the PMO there and I took over his job. Anyway, I didn't sit for the PMP until I was ready to leave that company, like 10 years later, maybe 13 years later. That's a long time ago. And I sat for the PMP. And I had so many hours, I didn't have to justify anything. I mean, because I had been doing nothing but project management since I had that aha moment back at Administrative Management Group back in my early career. So for me, I had plenty of hours. I filled out the paperwork. And in fact, the only reason why I took the PMP is because I was leaving Axiom to go somewhere else. And I noticed that in the market, most jobs required a PMP. And I'm like, how can I be like a PMO leader? I'm in PMO leadership and I don't even have a PMP. And so I applied for the test. I got approved to take it. I don't remember how many hours it was that time, but as I said, I didn't have any problems. And at the time, it was like a month before the new test came out. I had been studying the old PMBOK. I don't even know if it was version 5. It's a long time ago, so I'm aging myself. But I studied for that thing in 3 weeks. 3 weeks, but even though I build PMOs and when we get into this later in the program, I'll talk about how you prepare for the exam. I prepare for the exam the right way. I took a crash course.
Let's hold up.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
That's how I did. That's how I qualified. I had 10, 12, 13 years of project management experience prior to that point.
Got you. Excellent. I'd like to pose the same question to you, Sharon.
My journey with the PMP, I actually had mentioned earlier that I sent my entire team out to be PMP certified. I only hired PMPs. I did not have any time at all to take my PMP. I was so busy working. I did take a course and I did it the wrong way. I took a course and I came back to work and I had no time to prepare. And so it wasn't until a year later, when I left the company to start my own consulting business, that I decided I wanted to have that because I knew it would help me get contracts. But I had been doing it like Vina and like Alicia for many, many years. And I had a 3 week, I had a 3.5 week break. And I did it in that break. That I don't recommend that. I had to cut everything out and just do that. Like I had like a 12, 14-hour study day for 3 weeks. And that's how I did it. I don't recommend it. That's not normal. I don't want to give anyone the impression that that's a normal time frame. According to PMI, it's typically 4 to 5 months. After is a good time frame, but many people take a year, 2 years to take their exam. So it's really more a matter of And I don't know if you're probably going to come to it later. We'll talk about it later. You really just have to make a decision and buckle down. So 3 weeks is not normal. I don't want to give you the impression between Vina and myself. It takes longer than that normally, but when you're using the PMBOK at work, that's why it's shorter, because you're in there, you're learning all the tools and techniques. So while you're working, you're actually studying. So unless you're doing that, it's not 3 weeks.
Right. I'll just add, before I go to the next question, I'll just add, for me, I took my 35 hours, let's say like maybe last March, and I didn't have an opportunity to really buckle down and study. I mean, I was studying off and on, but it really takes a lot of preparation and noise canceling, and it took me probably maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, from the point in time that I scheduled my exam to the point in time I took the exam. 3 months I locked in. Now, moving on to the next question. Some people want a PMP certification and have taken some courses. What do you feel are the greatest challenges and hurdles? I think we kind of covered this a little bit. We could elaborate for those that want to chime in. But what are the greatest challenges and hurdles to obtaining a PMP? What advice would you provide to overcome those challenges? Alicia, would you like to take that?
Sure. So for me, like I know everybody talked about their experience in studying. Like you, Ken, I took about 2 to 3 months to study. I think the challenge was really remembering everything, because it's very formal, the exam, and you don't always use everything that you learn from the PMBOK in everyday life. It's all dependent on the organization that you work for, and even if they even believe in the methodology. So the challenge for me was like my teacher, my 35-hour course told us, you need to take this test within 4 months. Don't wait a year, because everything that I'm teaching now is going to go out of your brain. So I kept that in my brain, and I scheduled my exam in April of that year because I took the course in January, and me having that deadline date put me into go mode. Like I ate, slept, everything I thought about for the next 3 to 4 months was project management. I was taking the train to work, going to sleep with a pen in my hand and the book in my lap every single day, come home, study. That's all I did. I even signed up online for different practice questions to get sent to me every morning. So I would just continuously be studying. So I think the challenge really was just memorizing everything. But my teacher had taught us how to create a cheat sheet. So you put everything down on this sheet within like 5 minutes, because that's how long, when you're sitting for the exam, when they go through the instructions, that's how long it takes for the instructions to, like, that's the time frame, about 5 minutes, I believe. So I jotted down literally everything that was in my mind, so that it's like a data dump. Just remember everything that you learned over the last 4 months onto this piece of paper, because once you start that exam, it's timed, you have to use all of these formulas, and you get so caught up in your head that you can't remember everything. So I think the biggest challenge was just memorizing everything.
Yeah, thank you for that. Vina, how was it studying? I mean, I know you was a superstar,
I wouldn't say that. It was hard. And listen, it was hard. It was extremely hard, but to Sharon's point, it was easier for me because I said that the PMBOK became my Bible, right? And every process that I built, every PMO, project management office, I see there's a question out there for what's a PMO. Project management office is basically like the team of project managers. I built every process I did was based, because PMI is a guideline for project management. You don't have to use every single thing. And if you do, you'll have a really long process. So I learned to build different processes. But in terms of the test, because I only had a month, and I found Rita McCaughey, who was one of the original founders of PMI. She has a PMP bootcamp prep. And one of the things that people need to remember, and I tell everybody, this is a tip that I give everybody that I'm sending to take the PMP. You have to remember that when you walk into that exam, when you're studying, you have to like kind of throw out what you do for project management at your office, because I said at your job, your career, what have you, because project management, PMI is a guideline. You don't have to follow it to a T, but it gives you some really good standards to use so you can have, governance on your projects, right? And get projects done and get the metrics that you need, et cetera, make decisions. However, when you walk into that, when you're studying, it's PMI Island. Forget about what you do at work. What does PMI say? And when you're taking that exam, what does PMI say? So the answer is always going to be according to what the PIN box says. And if, as long as you can remember that and forget about what you do, because that would take you a long way. So put on your PMI hat, your fedora, or whatever the hat is called, your baseball cap, name it PMI, and you go in there and you take that exam on PMI Island. Nothing else matters at that point in time. However, that boot camp was really great because it had this super PMP set of questions from former exams that were, which are the hardest questions of them all. And the way it goes is you take the exam right off the bat. You do not read the PMBOK. You take the exam and it tells you where you are. It spits out, a summary of your score, and it tells you where you're in every area, all the 9 or 10. I understand there are 10 knowledge areas now. They have 10 knowledge areas, and it tells you where you're weak in all of those. You go back to the PMPOC and you study in each one of those areas until you get them up to like 90% or 100%. I took that over and over and over again every day. I would get up in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning. That's why I said it wasn't easy. 4 hours before, I would sit down and simulate as if I was taking that exam. And I would come home from work, 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. I was taking that exam. I had food next to me, but I was focused on getting my score up to nearly 100%, because once you get up to like 90 and 100% across the board, then you are ready for the exam according to this methodology, right? And so once I did that, I started getting 100% across the board. I started to go back and take other exams, and I was acing those too. Scheduled the exam, passed it. It was not easy. It's going to blow your whole mind. And I thought I failed because I was like, oh my God, this was even harder than the hardest exam questions. But I passed. But it took me doing that every day, 7 days a week. That's 21 days where I was hardcore studying. And I was the head of a PMO, 1,500 projects in the queue, 20 people working for me around the world. It was very hard. So I don't recommend it for anyone. Take the appropriate time to study. Otherwise, you will, it'll be very difficult because it's a very hard exam. So that's what I did.
We do have some questions, Ken, that are coming in.
I don't see it. I don't think I can see it.
Go into comments. It should be next to the.
And before we get into the questions, Sharon, I know that you have a program that you run with the BT Institute. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. First, I'd like to piggyback on what both of you said. And I think the key takeaway, if nothing else, they explained how hard they work and how dedicated they were, studying mornings, nights, taking it on the train. That's the key to passing the exam. It's making a decision that you're going to do it, and then that level of dedication. And I always use two analogies when people start the class. And I say that the first analogy is I used to cycle. Imagine you're cycling up a hill. And if you stop cycling, you actually roll backwards. So once you decide that you're going to study, you have to stay on it, because once you step away from it, you're going to forget what you learned. So once you decide and once you have a time frame of when you want to take your exam, you have to give it your complete focus. And another analogy I use is a funnel. You're learning, you're studying, it's going out the bottom. You have to pour more in than what's coming out. And so those are the two things. But what you both said, I think, is the absolute most important thing, is the level of dedication that you gave to it. Because what I see very often is I see people who can be highly educated, PhDs and things of that nature. And then I'll have some other people in the class, no college degree, and they come in and just bang it out and they do great. It's the dedication. I've also met a number of people who, when I tell them my business is one of the things we offer is PMP training, I've had so many people tell me the exam is rigged. And they say that, I have, this amount of experience. I've been doing it for these number of years. I have, I was a top student. But as Vina was explaining, and Alicia, you have to learn their material, their way. And in fact, if you bring your experience and your way of doing it into the exam, those answers will be there. The way you would normally approach it, all of those answers are there. They want to know that you studied their material and you're going to approach it the way they're teaching it. And so you really have to study the material, and you really have to be very, very focused on learning how they want to do it, and you have to have a plan. They both Alicia and Vina had a plan, and they knew what their target date was, their time frame, and they gave it everything in that time frame.
Right. We have a few questions that have come in. I'm going to start with the latest questions that I see. Sharon, if you can just, I guess we could start right now. If you could, they're asking questions about the boot camp. What's the difference between PMP and PMI? If you can just touch on that. And folks also want to know, how do you get sponsors or individuals interested in taking the PMP?
Okay, PMI stands for Project Management Institute, and they are the administrative body that oversees the exam. So they are the ones who write the questions, and they basically own the exam. And the PMP is one of the certifications that's offered by PMI. They have many certifications. They have an Agile certification. They have scaled out Agile. They have risk. They have scheduling. So PMI is the name of the organization, Project Management Institute. BTII Institute, my company is a PMI authorized training partner. So we are approved by them to train using their materials. We've been a training partner with them for many, many years.
Excellent. Now, maybe you can answer this question as well. The question is, what's the difference between PMP and Prince 2 and the Prince 2 certification? Are there different standards and techniques taught or used?
Yes. So they're definitely different. They're by two different bodies. And the PMP is global. Prince 2, you mostly see it used. You see a lot of it in Europe. It was getting really, really big at one point, and then it just kind of went away. PMP has just been around, and it's a staple, and it's staying. But you see more Prince 2 you'll see more of it in other countries. But it's definitely died down. It was rising up, and it died down at least 6-7 years ago. But it's still there. You still see it here and there. But it's a different body.
Sharon, I have a question. So your institute provides the 35-hour class time to actually sit for the exam?
Yes.
Okay. And I think what Vina was mentioning was Rita Mulcahy.
Mulcahy. Yeah, I can see it on your, yes. that right there was your life. Yes.
Like
Let me tell you something.
It was really good after I took the 35-hour class. Like, this is what I studied, and like it was everything for me. So if you guys take the boot camp, obviously this Rita Mulcahy, I can't pronounce her last name, Mulcahy. This is the book that was on my lap that I was falling asleep with a pencil in my hand.
Yes.
I'll just share as a recent certified PMP, I did not use that material. I have the books here myself. I have a couple of editions, I believe. But for me, what really helped me was basically taking the online quizzes and the simulations of the actual exam.
Yeah.
It was really tough for me to be on that was my approach. So that worked for me.
And don't get discouraged if you don't do well on the practice exams. They're just practice, because it doesn't, I mean, it's a good simulation, but I did better on the actual exam than I did on the practice. Don't give up.
Yeah.
And don't get discouraged.
Yeah.
And
So
then-
for, sorry.
I was just gonna say on the last thing about the Rita McCaughey book, or was she had like memorization games. Like there was a game that and I took the time to cut out every little piece. She had, and I was every night and every day, even at work, it also has flip cards. I would sit there and flip through all of the things. It's important to understand the order in which things occur. I know as PMPs, we can't tell too much about the exam, but it's important to understand the order in which things will come, and which things will come. And that is how you remember. And when you go into your brain dump, that's the things that you should be dumping on. That game may seem stupid, but it helped because it lays it out in the order. You remember the order, and it's a lot. It's about 100 and something pieces to it, but I cut it out meticulously, put it in a Ziploc bag, and I had it up on my board at my desk. And I would be doing it while I was in project meetings or on breaks every day for 21 days, and I passed. And like I said, I thought I failed because that test was exhausting. It blew my whole mind. I was like, because it's like this long pause after you take the test before you get your results. It's like 30 minutes, but it's actually like 30 seconds, but it took forever. And then finally was like, congratulations. I was like, boom, close that thing and ran up out of there like, thanks, I'm out. But it was hard. And I had to give up a lot for it. So anyway.
Yeah, I don't want to sugarcoat that it was easy. That was the hardest exam I've ever taken.
Nope.
And whatever you use, you have to use something other than the PMBOK, because it really need tools to help you learn. I didn't use, we actually have our own materials. We have quizzes, we have flashcards, e-flashcards, we have e-matching exercises. So we have a lot of tools, but whatever you decide to use, reading is not enough, because it kind of, where adults, a lot of your mind is going to go in and out. You may retain half of it, but if you do exercises and learn and use those learning aids, then you'll be able to retain it.
Right.
And,
I like to take a step back. There's a question. I mean, there are those that are here who had the hours to take the exam based on their career journeys. There are those who are sitting, who registered to take the exam. And then there's those who are hearing this conversation for the first time and trying to figure out, how do I obtain these hours? Like, how do I get a sponsor? You're talking about being audited. Like, what are some of the steps that you would recommend someone who's like saying, oh, this is great, but you know what? I don't think I have any project management experience. Where do I start? Any of you?
So I think that everyone uses project management in different ways. They probably don't even realize it. For me, to get the hours, I was on a strategy team. So we were working on an enterprise project. So I utilized all of those little mini projects to be able to sit for the exam. I worked at another employer where I told them that this was my goal, and they said they couldn't take me off of my tasks to work on a project. So you actually have to go to an organization that's going to provide you with that ability to use those skills so that you can sit for an exam. So if you're in an organization where they're like, sorry, we can't do that, you might have to change, organizations to go somewhere where they would give you that type of experience. But like Vina said, it was challenging because a lot of places require a PMP. So you'd have to find like a project that doesn't require that, or they'd be okay with you working towards getting your PMP if they do give you the opportunity.
Now, there's another thing that I want to make mention of. The recent exam is basically split up into three areas. There's the people, business, and process. Those are the areas. Those are the three areas that you're going to be tested on. The exam is about 180 questions. It's a 4-hour exam with 2 breaks. It's work.
You get breaks now? Do we get breaks? I don't think I got a break when I took.
I think I did get a break. It might have been like 10 minutes.
No.
But
Yeah.
they didn't count it. Go ahead, Sharon.
You could take a break before, but the clock was still running.
Yeah, no break time. No break time.
You take your breaks during your allocated time when you've completed a section.
No,
So
I
two
didn't have
breaks
that.
in between. That's the only time that I would recommend.
Good.
You take your break. The other thing I want to make mention of is that Agile is also a part of it. And Sharon, if you want to expand on, on training, and let's kind of talk about like, what do we do preparing, to sit for that exam? Like, what are some of the best practices that folks should be thinking about?
Sure. So in January 2021, the exam transitioned. So the PMBOK, the Project Management Body of Knowledge, that's the book that's associated with the exam. So the exam stayed in place because they update it every 4 years or so. And so we were using the PMBOK 6, but they changed the exam in January 2021. And the major change is that they added in more agile and hybrid questions. So half the exam is traditional PMP waterfall, and then the other half of the exam is hybrid and agile. And it's a big, big change because previously you have your waterfall exam, which is the PMP, and you have your PMI ACP, which is your agile exam. But what's happened in the marketplace is a lot of companies, if you look at some of the top surveys, 97% of employers are using agile.
Mhm.
And so PMI, in order to be competitive, they decided to add agile and hybrid to the exam to capture that market because so many people were getting agile certifications, but that there's that sweet spot of hybrid, and a lot of companies are in hybrid. So by making half of the exam hybrid and agile, they were able to, I think, refocus. That's my thought anyway, of why they did that.
And to piggyback off of that, Sharon, I think a lot of organizations also are going to the agile approach because that's how they can save money.
Yes.
Time is money. So if you can go back and check things before you finish a project, that's how they're able to save more money on their project. So I think that's why a lot of companies were going that route and why everybody was more inclined to get the agile certification.
And I can speak on from being the heads of PMOs and building project management offices and teams, is I recognized quickly that I needed to have a hybrid methodology. So I specialize in hybrid methodology that consists of PMI, Agile, Waterfall, SDLC, and whatever proprietary processes are at the organization, because there are some tasks that you need to include in your project lifecycle that must happen every single time, regardless of the project type that you have. So I am a huge fan of hybrid. And luckily I jumped on that many years ago so that I can make sure that, I'm building a process that still follows the PMI guidelines, also follows Agile, but also includes processes and tasks that are repeatable so that we can have processes that focus on, increased delivery throughput of projects, cost containment, and most importantly, resource management. So so I'm glad to see that the exam, like I said, it's changed a lot since I've taken it. We had 200 questions, no breaks, and it was purely waterfall. So, and again, what helped me was that PMI, skull cap I had on, whatever I had on at the moment to get me through. So it was just like, someone told me that, I think I studied for my ITIL exam, and the guy kept saying, the trainer kept saying, "You're on ITIL Island when you walk in here. Forget everything else you know." And I was like, I'm going to take that same mindset when I sit for the PMP. So,
Yes.
Question.
Oh, go ahead.
Question. Switching gears just a little bit. Not yet, but we're almost coming up on time, and we still have some more questions to ask in terms of career advancement and everything. But before we go there, I like to ask the question, like, what made you choose PMP rather than CAP-M? Was CAP-M ever a thought? And if so, why? And would you recommend it? And why would you recommend it to someone else?
So I was going to get a CAP-M when I was a business analyst.
And let's explain what CAP-M means for those. Sharon, you want to just expand on that? Or Alicia, could you expand on that?
Roger, I don't even know. Go ahead.
Oh, I can do it, or you can take it.
No, you can do it, Sharon.
Yeah, so
I don't remember what the acronym stands for.
Yeah, it's Certified Associate in Project Management. And so if you do not have enough hours to take the PMP, you can then take the CAPM. I would say up until about 4 or 5 years ago, that was a good way to go, to move your way into a junior project management position. So anyone who didn't have enough experience would go that route. But now there are so many other options that someone without a PMP, without enough hours to take the PMP, can take. So I personally don't recommend a CAPM because all it says is I don't have enough hours for a PMP.
Yes.
And what I would do instead.
So would you recommend, if that's not the option and one is looking to build up, would you recommend them to get the Agile certification?
I would recommend what I would recommend is a safe Scrum Master instead of a CAPM. And the reason that particular certification is that it's Agile. There are many different Agile certs. PMI has an ACP, but in order to take the ACP, you have to show a lot of experience. The Safe Scrum Master, all you have to do is take a class and study probably about 50 hours, 40, 50 hours. And it's a Scrum Master. So most project managers are in a position where they're in an Agile environment. So that's the closest thing to a project manager. And in many organizations, the project managers become Agile project managers and Scrum Masters and Agile coaches. So that, I would say, is the closest position, but it's also really a great certification because Scaled Agile Framework SAFE is the #1, it's the leading scaled framework. And so by far, so if you're going to get an Agile certification, I recommend that. And I'm a PMI partner. I recommend a SAFE Scrum Master. Anything to do with Agile, I recommend a SAFE Scrum Master product owner. By far, I would not get a CAPM. And the CAPM is still a lot of work.
Yeah.
So who should be thinking about pursuing a PMP certification, and what industries could folks be pursuing with their PMP? Like how do they expand? Like what are their options?
So the PMP definitely is still the gold standard for anything construction related. Construction is lagging behind. They're starting to do Agile. Every other industry, including government, it's heavily moving toward Agile. But the PMP is still valuable because most organizations are in a hybrid situation. So you have a lot of people who are getting their certifications for the first time. They're going directly to Agile. And the benefit of having the PMP and understanding the PMP is that when the organization goes through a transformation, you understand the as-is state and you understand all the pieces, and you're in a far better position to help them transition. And most organizations, even if they're transitioning, pieces of it are still going to stay in place. So for example, the planning pieces, Agile is still not good at budgeting and figuring out upfront budget.
Yes.
And so there are a lot of holes still there with Agile, but in terms of delivery, it's really, everything's moving in that direction. So even if you're getting your PMP, after you do that, you should get, I think, a safe Scrum Master or a safe product owner, product manager, depending upon where you focus in the business. And but the PMP is still very valuable. So don't think everything's moving.
Mm-hmm.
And how has Alicia? How has obtaining your PMP enhanced your career? I mean, all of us here have advanced degrees, but what is the difference you've seen from just having your MBA to now having your PMP?
You get a little bit more respect in terms of your knowledge because you have a PMP. They pretty much assume that you know exactly how to run a project. But I always say, I am someone that likes to be by the book. So, I got this PMP. I like to follow a specific methodology, but not all organizations believe in it. So if your organization isn't really on board with that style of either waterfall or agile, they don't really want to hear it. They do want you to have a PMP, but they may not be prone to actually wanting to follow your methodology. They may be a little bit more lax, but you really have to advocate for your process and let them know this is what can happen as a result of not following this roadmap. You have to, really tell them what the risks are. And you have to just outline all of that in your, at the beginning stages of your project. So I think it's really important to just know that when you do obtain it, you might have some pushback from individuals at the organization because they may not have had somebody with your skill sets to be there to really show them the way. But that's when you really have to, use your communication skills that you've learned and really advocate for why you have this PMP and why you were hired to be there.
Communication skills and your influencing skills or your negotiation skills, especially being the person that has to convince people that you need a project management office and some governance and showing them the value that project management can add to any given organization. You need to have all of that and more. But the key is having the buy-in from the organization. Otherwise, you'll be a miserable person, especially if you enjoy project management, especially if you enjoy, and by project management, I say that you enjoy taking something from this, minuscule concept and building it upon to something beautiful. Like I tell people, I make dreams come true as a project manager. Somebody had an idea and I'm going to make your dream come true. And I do it all the time over and over again. And it's a beautiful thing, but you have to have patience. Project management is not for the faint of heart. It's not for the faint of heart. You have to be strong because you have to be strong. And this is not trying to, push out there, this dynamic in the society today where you have to be so strong that you can't feel things or experience things. It's just that when something goes wrong with their project, you are the leader and you will be held accountable. But if you're successful in your influencing skills, motivational skills, people skills, relationship skills, all of that stuff is important because you're managing people who do not report to you and that have competing priorities. So, and especially when you're in an organization in technology, we always have like 700 and 900 projects. Right now, I'm not in that situation anymore, but it will come to someday. But having been through that for years, you have to be prepared. Your PMP can help you navigate some of the challenges of being in an organization that's embarking upon a PMO, whether it's going to be waterfall or agile or hybrid, whatever the case may be. So, but it is something that you have to be prepared for because it's hardcore. You are a leader. I look at project managers as leader, and I would say this when this is something, if I ever get my PhD, it would be my thesis statement. I think that project management is like the training ground for the C-suite. And I can attest to that real soon because right now I'm the head of technology. And I have a bachelor's of arts in English and a PMP with several years of project management of delivering technology solutions over and over again. And here I am. So it's just really interesting to see that there's some value to that, but it was a long trail, but you get there and you learn. If a project fails, it's a great thing because you can learn from it. You learn from your biggest failures in project management. So lots of lessons learned and you take them with you to the next journey. I look at every project as a journey. So just thought I'd share that little nugget.
Thank you. And Sharon, I have this question to ask. Being that you've been training for a number of years, you come across candidates who have advanced degrees, don't have degrees. You may have folks on this call that may not have a degree, may have an associate's or, just a bachelor's. Is the PMP a route that those individuals should pursue as well? I mean,
absolutely. And especially I mentor some people, and a few of the people I mentor have no college degrees. And I've been mentoring them for maybe about 6 years. I've watched them go from making 40K to well into their 200s. And that's off of certification after certification after certification. And so it's not the college degree, it's putting together a plan and doing it step by step. I'm going to get this certification to land this job, and this is my next step and my next step and my next step. So it's really planning. So if you have a degree, that's even, of course, that opens more doors. But if you don't have a degree and you put together a plan, you can work your way up to, it's not just a salary, but just to a job that you love and that's impactful. And
Oh, one thing I want to also mention, the price of the exam, it wasn't cheap. That's something else that kept me going to make sure I passed it, because
I considered it an investment.
Yep.
It actually is an investment, and it will pay. Everyone that I know who has a PMP certification, it is paying off. But ladies, we're coming up on time, and project management, we like to stay on time. Sometimes we're not able to quite, but we're going to do our best. All right. So one of my last question is, what advice, what few words would you, impactful words would you share with the group that's here with us today?
Believe in yourself. I said it a moment ago, project management is, you have to be like Teflon, right? Because there's going to be a lot of stuff thrown at you. And if you remember that you are, we used to say this at NYU, my old boss used to say this. You are the driver of the bus. You are the pilot on the plane. You are the ship, the crew, the ship, the captain of the ship, all of those things. You are overseeing the whole thing. If you're at the head, you're down here trying to configure servers, or you're trying to do like requirements, you miss out on seeing the entire picture. So remember, you are a leader, and you have to, if you implode or you are knocked off your game, people are looking to you to steer them and guide them to meet the objectives of the project on budget and on time. Always remember that this is leadership in its best. If you think about it, these people don't report to you, but yet you have to get this work done. So, and keep learning, stay abreast of the latest trends. Like, I got a SAFe certification in 2, and I don't have a Scrum Master because I'm at a different level in my career, but I have the practitioner level. But I stay abreast, and I'm constantly learning about different processes so I can continuously improve. So always continue learning too.
Next.
Go ahead, Sharon. You want to say something? To piggyback off of what Vina mentioned, you have to have a skin of Teflon. You have to have confidence.
Yes.
You are working with different levels in your organization. It could be a business analyst all the way up to the CIO, or the head of the PMO. So you have different levels of leadership, and you have to be able to speak to them confidently, tell them the status updates, and they're going to throw different questions at you that can throw you off, but you have to stand your ground and be as confident as you can, because that's really going to be very important in you having a successful project. And I'll turn it over to Sharon.
I would say project manage your career. So with project management, you learn to create a detailed plan and then execute the plan, and then you monitor and control the plan. Am I on target or not? And so project manage your career. You may veer off your plan, but possibly to a better plan. So if you don't plan it, it's not going to happen.
And you can re-baseline it, right, Sharon? Yes. You can re-baseline that plan. Absolutely. Love it. Thank you for that, Jim.
Well, this was great. Hey, folks, I hope you had, you were taking some notes and ready, had some action items, ready to take that next step, to becoming a PMP certified professional, taking those 35 hours, seeing if you're at the right organization. seeing how can you acquire these hours, which is basically 3 years of project management experience in order to sit for the exam. There's just so much that you can do. And, you know, while we're on the other side, we're still learning. And we have to continue to keep on learning to keep our certification. There's a 3-year renewal, so there's continuous learning that's still taking place. But now, we've come to the end. We would like to thank Sharon Bussey, Managing Director of BT2 Institute, or BTII Institute.
Thank you. Yeah.
Along with Vina Morris and Alicia Sulks, members of the New York Metro Chapter Executive Board, for such a rich conversation about advancing your career with a PMP certification. A conversation with certified project management professionals. If you are interested in advancing your career with a PMP certification or other training programs with B2II Institute, kindly go to btiiinstitute.com, where you can obtain your 35 hours of required professional development units, PDUs, as you may have seen across other programs, which is one of the application prerequisites to complete a Project Management Institute application. And you can contact Sharon Bussey by emailing her at info@btiiinstitute.com with the subject line request a meeting. Sharon, would you like to add any words?
Yeah, I would just like to add that I'm currently working with Norville, and we're putting together a discount program for everyone who's participating, the members, so that if you're interested in signing up for PMP courses, there'll be a discount for that. But we also offer about 20-something additional courses. We offer 13 SAFE courses: Scaled Agile Framework, role-based training, Scrum Master, Advanced Scrum Master. So covering all the different roles. Vina had mentioned the more senior roles. So we have certifications for lean portfolio managers, for safe agilists, for many different roles. But we're putting together a discount program for those of you who already have your PMP. These courses, all the SAFE courses, provide PDUs, so you can earn your requirement, your 3-year requirement through these courses as well. We also have Microsoft Project, which Vina talked about quite a bit, and many other courses in business intelligence, data analytics. But so we'll be working on putting a program together for all of you. I also want to mention that in addition to the training, we have study groups to help you get through the exam. And we also help our students. We have workshops for resume writing, specifically for project management, and for all of the SAFE courses. So it's resume writing, interviewing prep, all of that. That's specific.
Excellent.
Thank you.
All right. So lastly, it's time for virtual one-on-one speed networking. If you click on the networking feature at the right side of your screen, you will be connected to various attendees of today's program. We'll be keeping the virtual networking session open to about 7:30 for those that want to interact with those who are attending this session. On behalf of our chapter president, Novo Barrington, our chapter board, my name is Ken Holly, the Director of Leadership and Strategy at the New York Metro Chapter of the National Black MBA Association. Thank you for joining us for tonight's event. Now it's time for virtual networking. Have a great evening.